Do you remember anything from our honeymoon?
I remember a lot of things on our honeymoon.
Really? That was a big trip.
It was a very big trip. We went so many places.
Let's tell them about the Edison and Ford's winter estate.
That was cool.
Hello there, parapeeps, and welcome to another episode of Our Haunted Travels. I am your host, Sean Donnelly.
I'm your co-host, Marianne Donnelly.
In this video, we're going to tell you about one of the locations that we stopped at on our 18-day honeymoon road trip.
Yes.
Which was pretty awesome. Just all the driving was... a lot of driving. No.
A lot of driving, but we saw a lot of cool
stuff.
stuff.
Of places. And one of the ones that we stopped was the Thomas Edison and Henry Ford's winter estate.
That's correct.
He also called it Seminole Lodge.
Yeah, and the other one was the Mangoes.
Okay, so Edison was Seminole Lodge and Ford's was the Mangoes, but
Yes.
it was basically the same property.
Yeah, they were adjacent properties.
And the house was built for his wife for their honeymoon. That's where they vacationed. And
Isn't
we
that
went there on our honeymoon.
I know.
All right, so we are talking about Panic D number 2169. That's the Edison and Ford's winter estate. It is located at 2350 McGregor Boulevard in Fort Myers, Florida. Yes, we visited in July of 2006. 20 years next year.
Yeah.
20 years. Wait till you see some of these pictures. Wow.
We look different.
We were a lot smaller with darker hair.
Yes, we were.
This is one of those videos where we don't have video, but we're going to share photos from the place. It was really interesting. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, if you're into the paranormal, history, forensic, and travel type videos,
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ding that little bell so you'll hear from us next time we post a new video.
That's right. So this place was, I don't even remember how we found it. I don't remember how we found it because we went farther down and we were looking for something to do in Fort Myers. This was before we got into the paranormal, at least 4 or 5 years before we got into the paranormal. And, Edison was a big guy in our lives, like as far as like research and, you teach
science.
stuff about science and things like that. And Henry Ford and Thomas Edison had a place together for the winter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's go check it out. Glad we did.
Yeah, it was really nice.
A lot of stuff.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to give you a little bit of history about this location. Go ahead and watch this quick video and we'll be right back.
This present site dates from 1885 when Edison first visited Southwest Florida and purchased the property to build a vacation home. He had traveled down to St. Augustine, Florida during the winter of 1885 at the behest of his doctor, who thought the warmer climate could help cure an illness that Edison was suffering from. After recuperating in St. Augustine, he ended up traveling first across the state to Cedar Key and from Cedar Key to Fort Myers. His home, completed in 1886 and later dubbed Seminole Lodge, served as a winter retreat and a place of relaxation until Edison's death in 1931. Edison's good friend Henry Ford purchased the adjoining property, the Mangoes, from Robert Smith of New York in 1916. Ford's craftsman-style bungalow was built in 1911 by Smith. In 1947, Mrs. Mina Edison deeded the Edison property to the city of Fort Myers in memory of her husband and for the enjoyment of the public. It was open for public tours soon afterward. In 1988, the adjacent Henry Ford Winter Estate was purchased and opened for public tours in 1990. In 2003, the governance of the site was transferred from the city to a new nonprofit corporation, the Thomas Edison and Henry Ford Winter Estates, Inc., whose mission was to protect, serve, and interpret the site. The new corporation completed a $14 million restoration project in the following years. A separate fundraising arm, Edison Ford Winter Estates Foundation, Inc., was created to assist in the restoration project with no function in its governance.
All right, there's the history. So we got a couple pictures from there.
We do. I think I had 10,000 pictures on our honeymoon.
I don't know. There's a lot.
We took close to 1,000 pictures a day.
Yeah, so let's bring up the pictures while we're talking here. Okay, so this is Fort Myers on our way to the place. Those trees, by the way, those palm trees, that's a famous picture in Fort Myers where the streets lined with palm trees. Those were donated to Fort Myers by Edison. But, yeah. So there's a few things about this location that wasn't in the history that we found out and we kind of remembered from the tour a little bit from 20 years ago. But just looking at the pictures, and thankfully when we go to these places, Mary Ann takes pictures of everything, including the placards, so we could go back and say, I know there was something about that, and we read the placards. But basically, and I think this was in the history, but Edison was told by his doctors to go south.
Right.
Because he was a little bit ill, and he went to St. Augustine, one of our favorite places. And then he eventually
made his way
down to Fort Myers.
Right.
Saw the land, loved it, bought it, built the house.
Right.
Long story short, not to recap the history. But while he was there, Edison always worked. Constantly. Work. Kind of like us. Always working. He had a lab there.
He did.
And he worked on... What I found about this place that was really cool is he worked on different
filaments.
Yeah, different materials to make the filament for the light bulb, the long lasting. And as you walk the grounds, there's all kinds of different species of trees and plants and everything from all over the world that's on the property. These were the plants that he was using in his laboratory there and testing them out for the light bulb. Which is pretty cool. Then he also built a swimming pool and other stuff for his wife and their kids and stuff like that. Here, you go do this, I'll be in the lab type thing.
Because he did. There is still a lab there, and that was really cool. I got to go in and check out his lab while I was there.
Yeah, that's the second lab you got to see. Second or third? Second. Because we saw the Menlo Park one.
Yes. So I think we saw this one first, and then we saw the one in Menlo Park. Well, the recreation of Menlo Park, disassembled and reassembled Menlo Park. Right,
and also he used this lab too. What you took notes about that? That was World War One, right?
Yes.
When there was, they were worried about a shortage of rubber.
Right.
That could have happened during the war. So he was working on using domestic plants to make rubber. And he was working out of this lab here on that project.
Yeah, and he was actually kind of doing it to help out his friends. Firestone, Harvey Firestone was one of his buddies, and of course Henry Ford.
Yeah.
And so they kind of backed his research on that too.
Right. They formed a corporation. What was it called? Edison
Botanic Research Corporation.
Yeah, with funding from Firestone and Ford. He never finished that project, never got to the end, but that research continued on after his death. And they came up with that, which is kind of...
Yeah, they ended up using goldenrod, which we think of it as a weed here in Ohio. Everybody is always like, oh, I've got allergies and there's so much goldenrod out. But they were actually using that to make rubber.
He was using that to generate great rubber.
Very cool.
Also on the grounds, do you want to talk about the friendship walk?
Yeah, so when we went there was all these rocks on the ground in a pathway that had different names etched in them. And we're like, that's pretty cool. It turned out that was actually what they deemed the friendship walk. So as people would kind of come there, they would, get them a rock and they would pay to have it etched with their names and things like that. And so it started where there was a guy that came. He was a doctor, Dr. Holt, I think it was. And he came along and he said, hey, when I was in school, we had this...
Well, they have it at the college.
Campus. We had this walk of fame at the campus that I was in. And it was really kind of cool. And Edison's like, that is pretty cool. And so he started a friendship walk. So as people came to his house, they added a stone. But there's one stone that doesn't sort of exist sort of with a name on it.
There is a stone, but no name. And that was given to him by Henry Ford. And he made the statement he was just a poor farm boy and couldn't afford to have it etched.
Yeah, so he was just giving him a plain rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because people, they walk up and they're like, okay, here's that guy and that guy.
Where's Henry Ford?
Where's Henry Ford? They like lived next door to each other. How did they not have one for him?
The rock exists, but it's not etched with his name.
Yeah.
Several famous people throughout the years visited this location. A wedding took place here. There's actually a rock that notes where the wedding
spot.
took place. It's pretty interesting. If you're ever in Fort Myers and you're ever down there, go to this location. There's a ton of history from them to the stuff that they have in the museum that belong to them. There's handwritten notes from Thomas Edison. There are cars and stuff in the mechanical garage from Henry Ford. It's just amazing, and I'm glad we decided to go there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the grounds are just so well taken care of,
Yes.
too. They've got the big, beautiful banyan tree out front, and then just along the water, because there's a water feature there, right along the water, they have all kinds of just, like you had mentioned, the different plants and things. They have this, it's really cool, I remember it, the birdhouse out in the middle of the water, and it like is designed to match the house.
Yeah, looks like the house.
Yeah,
that was pretty neat.
So just if you just want to even walk the grounds and you're not really into all the nerdy stuff, although you wouldn't be watching this if you weren't. But that's still really
Speaking of people
too.
watching this and our haunted travels, we do have a lot of people that watch our videos that's interested in the paranormal.
Oh,
There
are there paranormal claims here?
Yes, there are local legends about this place where some say that the apparition of Edison and Ford are often seen. But what's interesting about Ford is his apparition is seen around the gardens.
Interesting.
Yeah. And of course Edison is seen in the workshop and tinkering around and doing different things, and then of course he disappears when people approach him. And then there's the typical paranormal claims about footsteps and noises and things being moved and stuff like that. But and it's on a river. The body of water that you're talking about is flowing water on a river and everything. Kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Now, normally we also talk about our personal experiences, and I remember...
Great segue again.
I remember when we went there, there's like this outbuilding, and you're able to go. It's on the paths and everything. You're able to go there. But I just felt like I shouldn't be there, or I was hushed.
I think it was the caretaker house.
I just felt like we weren't supposed to be over there. I felt like we needed to leave.
You needed to turn around and go back the different way or something.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention to you because I remember it being hot.
You're always super hot.
Well,
though.
it was July in Florida, Fort Myers. It was a little crispy. And I think by that point, I was like, okay, honey, we'll go the other way. So, but...
yeah, but I don't know if there's any paranormal claims there in that area specifically.
Not that I'm aware of, not that's in the database. So
that part I felt uneasy being in. The rest of the place was just absolutely amazing, and I would have loved to have stayed in Edison's lab for like hours.
We didn't. I can't remember. Did we go into the lab? You cannot go into the homes, but there's a porch that you could go around them, and almost every room is open to the porch. Because there's no air conditioning, but everything's open to the porch, and they have like a glass thing that you can
plexiglass.
Yeah, you can look into the room, see the furniture, and see all the stuff. You can't actually go into
So
the homes,
you were able to go into the lab, but only like a walkway across it.
That's right.
You weren't
there was
able to
a
like
walkway
go down
with that
in
glass.
Yeah, you couldn't go
through it.
all the way through and around every table and instrument and things like that. But you were able to walk.
It is a
like,
museum.
across.
It's a museum.
Yeah,
but
it was
just
really
seeing some of the artifacts that are there was just amazing, and the different plant samples and and all that. It was really cool. I would love to go back there. I did,
Yeah.
you know, especially with the video equipment and stuff that we have now, and get better footage and kind of lay the place out. Our selfie that we have from this place, somebody must have took the picture. It's probably been up. We were by the banyan tree next to the statue of Thomas Edison, and my eyes are closed. There's only one selfie of us next to it. There's a couple of them. Well, there's a couple that you took.
Yeah.
But it doesn't show anything behind us. It was just us as a couple. It was our honeymoon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, so we covered the history, we covered the paranormal, we covered our personal experiences. Is there anything else you would like to add for this location?
Just like when we came back from our honeymoon the next school year, I did a project at school where the kids had to do a postcard from a scientist. And so they had to do research on where they were, where they made their discoveries and things. And I remember making an example.
From here?
From here. I used the picture that I took of Edison's estate in his lab. And I used that as the background of the postcard.
Most people don't think of Fort Myers, Florida when you think of Thomas Edison and Henry Ford. You know, Thomas Edison was New Jersey, Menlo Park type thing, and Henry Ford's Detroit and all that. But this was where they went later on in life in the winters. They would go down here in winter.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yes.
All right, so I guess we'll wrap this one up.
All right.
Okay, folks, till next time.
Thanks for watching.
And happy hunting. Okay, well, I screwed up.
Okay.
I was out editing the video that we just recorded. And we didn't show all the pictures. So everything we talked about, the swimming pool, this selfie that you took of us, the path, the important stuff we talked about in the video, we didn't show the pictures. We got like halfway through the slideshow, and I wasn't paying attention. So here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
From this point on in the video, I'm going to do show you the rest of the pictures and put music to it, and then we'll end the video. You okay with that?
Okay. All right.
Oops.
So you just have extra stuff.
I have extra pictures.
Okay.
So is that my fault, or is that your fault?
I don't know, but I don't see why we don't just record a section here in the middle and...
I don't know. We'll just do a photo montage with music to it and to the end of the video.
Okay.
All right, so we already said till next time, right before this.
So that.
Duplicate that. All right, we'll see you in the next video. Bye. Let us know if you like this video by hitting that thumbs up. Also, if you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, support our channel by hitting that subscribe button and dinging that bell so you get notified the next time there's a video from Panic D Videos.
Thanks for watching.
Happy hunting!